This is Patty Teal, founder of the Hub for Podcasting Network. Stay tuned. Healing with Dr. Gloria Kay is up next. Hi, I'm Patty Teal, founder of Hub for Podcasting Network, and I'm here today with Dr. Gloria Kay. She's an amazing energy healer, both in person and remote. And so we thought it'd be interesting today to talk about a day in the life of a healer. Does that sound good to you, Gloria?
I'd be happy to share. So I don't know that my days are so extraordinary, but I will tell you that the first thing that I do when I get up in the morning is to do my meditation. And I'm so consistent with this. It's been 50 years that I've been practicing yoga. So the yogis have a name for these quote unquote powers. It's called siddhas. Now, I attribute my gift to my great aunt, but I'm sure the meditation has certainly helped with the gift. So again, the yogis call it siddhas. And that's my very, very first thing that I do in the morning. And I do that for a half hour. And after that, I do yoga stretches. I have been doing this for many, many years. I don't consider myself a fanatic, and yet I've only missed 3 months in the last 50 years. So maybe I am fanatical and I don't know
it. Well, maybe you're a good type of fanatical. I mean, it certainly keeps you limber, keeps you in shape, and somehow I think that meditation probably is part of why you're such a channel for healing, don't you?
I agree with you. I agree with you. Because when I do my work, I get an image, and that's how I do my work if I'm working remotely. Yesterday, I had a very interesting very interesting episode. I don't know how to describe it. A very interesting client. She had pressure on her chest and all of the signs of a heart attack. And she was going to see to it today. So there's no way that I will allow anybody on my watch to be in jeopardy. But the fact that she said that she had the appointment for today gave me permission to do what I do. Anyway, long story short, I wasn't able to enter the heart area through the front. I had to go through her back. And what I discovered, and so I could see that there was an abnormality in the front. There was just a dark area in the front, and it didn't look as if there was anything acute. It was more of an amorphous shape. And so I entered her body through the back. And as I worked, I saw that much of her issue was muscular, because after I went in through the back, a lot of the pressure was relieved. And then I could see that the muscles in the front of her chest were also in spasm. So, I just use my intuition. My job is to be present more than anything else. And so that's what I've committed to do. I see clients almost every day. If you wake me up in the middle of the night, the energy will still be with me. I might rub my eyes a little bit, but it's right there. It doesn't go away. Mm-hmm. And so even to channel it, I don't even know the words to describe what it is that I do. I direct energy to the areas that I believe need attention. I mean, I can safely say that.
Mm-hmm. And so many people think it's a placebo. And of course, the mind is very powerful, and I'm a believer that at times we can heal ourselves. And of course, a lot of manifestation is about imagining yourself well and picturing yourself well, but you're doing something different than what I'm describing, aren't you?
Correct. And when people ask if it's my personality or placebo effect, I like to give the example of working with a horse. I mean, I don't think a horse is conscious about a placebo effect mm-hmm. or anything other than receiving the energy. Mm-hmm. So what I do is look at the areas that need attention, and then I direct energy to those areas. And this is what I do remotely. Now, hands-on, it's very similar. So this morning I worked on a woman who, God bless her, she overworked. She overworked. So she was really quite compromised when she came into the office. And I knew she wanted to talk, and I wanted to talk with her too. But I immediately put my hands on her knees. That's where I was called to place my hands. So if it's remote or if it's in person, it's really an intuitive response to the information I'm getting.
And is one more powerful or more effective than the other? I'm comparing the remote to the hands-on.
Well, interestingly enough, remote seems to work more quickly than hands-on. And
Really?
sometimes if I get stuck with someone and they're in my office, I'll sit them across from me, maybe 5 or 8 feet away from me. I will close my eyes and I will direct energy to where I think it needs to be. Yeah. So another example, I was working on someone who was just devastated because of her arthritis, and she had had an accident. And so her shoulder was involved, her knees were involved, her back was involved, and things were moving along well. And toward the end of the session, I said, I'd like to do a little remote on your shoulder, because she didn't have full range of motion with her arm. And so I sat across from her, and in, I don't want to say seconds, but in a minute or less, she was able to move her arm freely. So it really works quickly. And if any scientists are out there, please, I am open to a scientific explanation.
Mm-hmm.
What I believe happens is that light waves are generated and directed toward the energy, toward the area that needs attention. That's what I believe. I'd love somebody to prove it.
Mm-hmm. Are some people more receptive to the healing energy than others? Are some people easier to work on?
Well, some people have a delayed reaction to what I do, but most people have an immediate benefit.
Mm-hmm.
And I, I, I don't think there's a great deal of difference between those who receive easily and those who do not. I used to have a belief that the English were more difficult.
Oh,
And because what I do is in the Latino culture, and I would be called a curandera, that Latinos are more responsive. It's not the case anymore. So either I've changed or the world has changed, but people seem to be equally responsive.
mm-hmm. So, back to a day in the life of a healer. People generally call you or email you, and they either set up an in person appointment if they happen to live in Santa Barbara, or you set up an appointment to work on them long distance. Do they need to do anything to prepare for that treatment? Are they just going about their day, or do they get in a meditation themselves? What do you suggest?
Yes, so I like to do a 15-minute complimentary consultation, and that could be on the phone or usually on the phone, even if it's an in person treatment. And I get a good sense of what's going on and whether I'm a good match or not. So that's how it begins. And then I set up a time, and it usually takes between 50 and 60 minutes. And I begin just as soon as I see the individual. And sometimes, with their permission, I will begin before we even see each other. So after I've had a conversation with them and I know where I need to go, I might start a little early.
Interesting. So the types of things that people could come to you for are really quite vast, aren't they? It could be
Yeah.
physical injury. It could be after surgery, before surgery to help them get through it better. What other types of issues do you deal with?
Well, some of them are very strange and off the charts. The one that comes to mind right now is a woman who had a genetic um, issue. And as a result of that issue, she wasn't able to process her metals. And so she was quite toxic and she had a horrible taste in her mouth. So where did I begin with that? My goodness, I was all over the place and just trying to determine what what would be the most potent way that I could address the situation. I wasn't too hopeful initially, but within 3 sessions, she she was fine. She was absolutely fine. And
Really,
so
that's amazing.
that amazed me. And someone asked
Mm-hmm.
today, what do I feel about how would I describe my healings? So my initial answer was, that's what I do in a day.
Mm-hmm.
However, I am absolutely in awe of some of the results. Not all
That's,
of the results. Some
yeah.
of them are just so please God, so predictable in that if you have a sprain, a recent injury, and you come to me, chances are you will walk out of the office without any remnants of that issue. Chances are.
Mm-hmm.
And I usually like to schedule 3 sessions. Sometimes after the first session, clients will feel that some of the symptoms are returning. This doesn't always happen. But what I like to do is stabilize what I've done, because I believe I work cellularly. So if you think about the cells stacking up in an appropriate way, and then the correction is made, I want to maintain that stability. So sometimes, a second session is necessary, or a third session.
Yeah, I've known you for a long time, and I think a mistake that some people make is they will come to one session and they feel immediately better. But as you said, sometimes symptoms return, and it's a little unrealistic. I don't know if that's the right word. Sometimes, of course, one session is it. People are healed forever. You did that with my mother's hip. But I know I used to have back problems, and we worked a number of times and I'd be better, but then it would slip back to its old patterns and I would be better until I got completely better. And then, I mean, my back has been fine for so many years. It's wonderful. But I think that it's fair to think that sometimes it's going to take more than one session for an issue. But people do have that attitude. It didn't last, and when they
Well,
would never.
you go to a masseuse, you
Mm-hmm.
use more than once. You go to a
Yes.
doc. I mean, what are your expectations anymore? I don't know.
Right.
Get some. So I think it's very realistic to think in terms of multiple sessions,
I
but
do too. Mm-hmm.
it's not necessary.
Mm-hmm.
It's not necessarily the way I have to go.
Right. Right. Yeah. But it's just interesting how people think
Yeah,
about
yeah.
differently with an energy healer than they do
The
others.
miracle, right,
Mm-hmm.
right.
Mm-hmm. The miracle didn't last. Well, go back. So, you heal animals, you heal you work on children, you work on adults. Are children sometimes more receptive?
No, not
No.
really.
Oh.
First of all, I have to get them to be to stay still.
Oh, right, right. That makes sense.
So,
Yeah.
so I'm talking about a child under 5. So,
Hmm.
mom, please hold your baby and back your baby in any way you can, and then maybe I can get close and maybe touch the tush or touch the head or whatever. Um, so there's a little girl that I just adore, and she will be in my documentary. Just such a pistol and just so beautiful. So initially, she was so congested that she wasn't beautiful at all.
Oh.
she she was really a miserable child. But the last seriously, last
Yeah.
time I saw her, she had a cough, and what we did last time was interesting. I hadn't done that before, but she knew what I was doing, and she knows me now. We did FaceTime. We did Face.
Oh.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so there was a family event, and mom asked if I would help. Of course, I'd help. So she was much better by the time the event uh, was taking place.
That's interesting when you talk about family events. And, I used to be a special ed teacher, and you think of children with autism, which, of course, is seems to be rampant today, according to everything that I'm reading. Have you worked on children that have those kinds of issues?
Yes, some children who were severely autistic. So I worked with a pediatrician's son, and he was severely autistic. I worked with a teenager who was diagnosed with autism, but it was much milder. and I
Mm-hmm.
worked on his head, and he could feel, things going on. I never followed up. I only got to see him once. Trying to think who else I might have worked on. Oh, the little girl who lost her ability to walk after she was vaccinated. That's
Oh.
one of my favorite stories. This goes
Mm-hmm.
back, no, probably 30 years, but mom brought the little one to me. And as I said, she lost her ability to walk. Within a few sessions, she was walking, and mama had her little girl back. And interestingly enough, I recently saw this little girl who is now in her 30s and has 3 children, and she's a runner.
Oh my gosh. Oh,
Yeah,
that must
that's
just make you feel so good.
it
Yeah.
does. It
Mhm.
does. It
That you
does.
could have changed the whole course of her life.
Yes.
Hmm.
I hesitate because I hesitate.
Hmm.
Yes, in all probability. I mean,
That's
maybe someone else could have done it, but I was there.
hmm So you never know what's going to happen in a day, or who you're going to see, or who's going to call. So it makes life interesting, doesn't it?
Certainly does. So there are some clients that I have now who are severely compromised, and I've been working with them for months. This is very unusual. However, I'm making headway, and this one particular person that I was thinking about is pleased. And sometimes it's really hard when you're so compromised to look at the markers. But this person, for instance, has an active life. His pain used to keep him absolutely fatigued, and he has quite an active life now. It's almost normal, almost normal.
Yeah. I just wanted to talk to our audience a little bit about the difference between what you do and a medical medium person, because you don't consider yourself a person who looks at you and gives you a diagnosis. That's not really what you're zoning in on, correct?
Correct. So that would be a medical intuitive. I am not that. I don't diagnose. I can see areas of compromise, but I I wouldn't venture to give any kind of a diagnosis.
Hmm. So you just start working, but you don't necessarily say, I think you've got this type of
No,
cancer or that or whatever. You don't go there.
no, I don't. However, if I see something that I can correct, for instance, the woman with the shoulder also had a injury, and so I was able to tell her she had a groin injury. And I won't tell anybody anything I see that I can't correct.
Oh, hmm.
I don't think I don't think that's fair. And
Right.
how many have you gone to a doc and they'll say, well, it could be this, it could be that, and blah, 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 blah. And I'm dealing with someone now who feels that he's been traumatized by physicians who have given him the possibilities,
Oh,
and he
I
kind of makes
understand.
stuff.
Right. So before we leave today, speaking of trauma, um, you are actually a psychologist and you have so many different types of training. I one time had a trauma. I don't know if you've remember it. I think I've thanked you for it, but my husband got severely hurt and found him in the hallway with a head injury and I thought he was dead. And after that, I just was not myself. I was following him around everywhere. He couldn't go to the bathroom without me saying, are you okay? Are you okay? And came into your office and you made me tell the story over and over. I didn't want to. You'd say, tell me again
No,
what happened. And uh, you did some sort of, I don't know if you'd call it tapping. I can't even remember where you touched or held what part of my body, but I walked out of your office and I was fine. I didn't worry about him anymore. It was over and it was like gone. It was amazing. So
yeah.
your skills are pretty varied.
They're varied. They are varied. Just to clarify, I'm a licensed MFT, and my degree is in clinical psychology. So if anybody wanted to differentiate, that's the differentiation. I'm an
Okay.
MFT with a PhD in clinical psychology. Now, I hardly do any counseling at all. So there's a line that you can't cross. If you're going to do counseling, you can't do hands on. And as I said, I hardly ever deal with any emotional issues per se. If it comes up in a session, I might address it and I can say, well, I'm getting this information. I'll share it with you. But I
Hmm.
don't do counseling per se. And the technique you're talking about was not original. It was something that I had learned along the way, and it changes the imprint of the trauma.
Wow. Well, it
I know.
worked. Have you used it on other people too? I mean, it was like amazing. So I'm a true fan, that's for sure. Well, I've so enjoyed today, and I think it's given people a little better idea of how you work and what the life in the day of a healer is like. So I thank you so much.
Well, it was my great pleasure and so good to see you. And I do like your hair.
Oh, haircut. Thank you. Kind of earphones don't do much for it, but thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.
Would you like to give Dr. K's miraculous healing ability a try? What have you got to lose? Free for those who schedule a healing session for airing on this show. Visit her website at drgloriak.com or email her directly at drgloriak@aol.com. That's drgloriA.com.